Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving deep into the often overlooked world of epsilon in deep learning. It's a tiny parameter, but it packs a surprisingly powerful punch.
A tiny parameter with a big impact? Sounds like something I'd completely ignore until it bites me in the behind. What's the big deal with this epsilon?
Precisely. It's usually stuck in the denominator to prevent division by zero, a classic nuisance parameter, as the author calls it. But changing it, even slightly, can dramatically alter performance. Think of it as the secret ingredient nobody talks about, but everyone should be using.
So it's like that one weird spice your grandma adds to her soup? You don't know what it is, but it makes all the difference? Which algorithms are we talking about here?
Exactly. We're talking about optimizers like Atom, RMS Prop, Adagrad, the usual suspects. In these, epsilon is added to the preconditioning matrix to ensure it's positive definite, making it invertible. It's a clever trick to avoid numerical instability, but it's also a hidden lever for controlling the optimizer's update.
I see. So a larger epsilon means a weaker preconditioner, right? Less reliance on the approximation of the loss surface curvature?
Spot on. A larger epsilon dampens the effect of the preconditioner. It's a trade-off. A smaller epsilon lets you capture low curvature directions, speeding up optimization. But a larger one makes you less sensitive to inaccurate curvature approximations, especially early in training. It's a delicate balance.
So how do we find this sweet spot? Should we just randomly try different values?
Well, the author suggests a dynamic approach, similar to the Levenberg-Marquardt algorithm. You monitor how well your second-order Taylor expansion predicts the actual loss change. If they agree, you can decrease epsilon. Otherwise, increase it. Think of it as a feedback loop, adjusting epsilon based on how well your model is learning.
That sounds pretty sophisticated. But what about simpler approaches? Is there a quick and dirty method?
Absolutely. The author recommends trying a few orders of magnitude larger than the default. For Atom or RMS Prop, try the default and epsilon equals 10 cubed. It's a low-hanging fruit, and it might surprise you.
Okay, so we've tackled optimizers. What about batch normalization? Does epsilon play a role there too?
Oh yes. Batch norm also has an epsilon in its denominator to prevent division by zero. Here, increasing epsilon acts like temperature scaling, smoothing out differences in activation channel magnitudes. This can improve model calibration, especially on datasets like CIFAR10, as shown in one of the cited papers. But remember, this is secondary to other calibration techniques.
Interesting. So it's not just about avoiding numerical issues, it's about subtly influencing the behavior of the model itself. What about the different implementations of these algorithms? Are there variations in the default epsilon values?
Oh, absolutely. There's a wild west out there. TensorFlow, PyTorch, and Flax all have different defaults for both Atom and batch normalization. Even the placement of epsilon, before or after the square root, can vary. It's a bit of a mess, honestly. This highlights the importance of carefully checking the documentation and being aware of these implementation details.
So the moral of the story is, don't just blindly accept the default epsilon value. Experiment, explore, tune it.
Precisely. The author even suggests jointly tuning epsilon with the learning rate and weight decay, as they can interact in complex ways. It's a bit more involved, but the potential payoff is significant. Remember, even a small change in epsilon can lead to big performance improvements. It's a hidden gem waiting to be discovered.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into the world of epsilon. Thanks for shedding light on this often overlooked parameter.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, remember to always tune your epsilon. Until next time, goodbye from Tech Bytes and News.
Bye-bye.